And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never sit out. We are your hosts, MD and CD. Today, it's week 13. We have 2 more weeks of regular season football before we enter conference championship races. Conference races right now are crazy. College football playoff races are crazy. The rankings just dropped tonight as we're recording this. Some stuff CD and I were already talking about off air, but the point is, some of these matchups we got today, huge conference and college football playoff implications, actually massive. When I look at all of these games that we're going to talk about today, CD, every single one of them is going to have major implications on the postseason for this college football season. If you guys are just tuning in for the first time, I would encourage you to like the video if you like the content. Simple rule that we have here. And then also, I would consider subscribing because we'll be here all season. We'll be here when the coaching carousel starts getting crazy. James Franklin to Virginia Tech. Holy moly. They got the ball rolling. They're not waiting for Florida State. He's not waiting for Florida State. Arkansas fans feel a little bit duped. College football is crazy right now.
It is. What a time right now, November, late November. Obviously, the games are what we're going to focus on, in our channel because that's what matters. So we only get football about 14 weeks, right, in the regular season and, of course, the postseason and bowl season, which we love. We're going to enjoy it while we can, but a lot to talk out. Like you said, we will unpack all of that in due time. But, yeah, holy cow, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of things going on. 2 weeks left. 2 weeks left, man. And I know people the SEC having their fun week with the cupcakes and all that stuff. But a lot of other teams are having bye weeks. They got weird things going on. I think we found some really, really big time matchups here. There's still a lot of good football being played. I know people are upset about the game day location, yada, yada, yada. We're talking about a lot of good football here and can't wait to get into it.
Well, let's start in the Mountain West. What are we doing here? Hawaii goes to UNLV. All right. Both of these teams, as it stands right now, have a chance to compete for this conference championship right now. Hawaii sitting at 7-3, UNLV 8-2, both 4-2 in conference. The only other teams that are 4-2, New Mexico, Boise State, Fresno State, and then of course San Diego State sitting at 5-1 in conference. Yeah, this is a huge game. By the way, UNLV is only favored by 2.5. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch Hawaii this year, okay, this is the Timmy Chang that we were promised. All right, this is the classic run and shoot that you were expecting to see. Their offenses weren't super consistent in those couple years past, even with some good wide receivers, some decent quarterback play. You see some running backs break out here or there in these last 3-4 seasons with Timmy Chang, excuse me. But now you got a team top 10 in passing yards per game with Mike Alejado balling out a quarterback. You got two stud receivers over there, including a transfer from Stanford in Jackson Harris, who is an absolute monster, especially over these last 5 games, and a defense that has been enough. We saw it early in the season. We just thought, oh, maybe Stanford is that bad. Or let's turn this thing around. How good actually is Hawaii? And can they go on the road here to beat a UNLV team that has seemed pretty vulnerable to me?
Listen, it'll be tough though. The reality is this is a rivalry game, right? The ninth Island Trophy is on the line between UNLV and Hawaii. These two teams have a long history with each other, including playing each other in the WAC as well, if you remember that conference back in the day. So a lot of good things to talk about here. You talked about even last year too. It was different coaching staff over there in Vegas with Barry Odom, but you had Malik Williams and UNLV ranked going to the island and playing a 4-quarter dogfight against the Rainbow Warriors. Braden Shager, right, was a quarterback of that Hawaii team. You talked about how good Alejado has been for them, and he's going to have to be. But this UNLV team is vulnerable defensively. Vulnerable, man. They give up a lot of yards, a lot of points. They are bottom 3 in all categories: scoring defense, total defense, passing defense, rushing defense. Bottom 3 in the Mountain West this year. It has been tough. On the flip side, though, they run the ball well. They are first in the Mountain West in running the ball, rushing yards. Dan Mullen has brought a lot of fun plays, a lot of fun schemes, and a dynamic offense. A couple quarterbacks getting involved. Of course, Calandria and Jaden Thomas leading the way. Hopefully, Jaden Thomas is healthy for our Rebels there and what he can do against, listen, an Hawaii team, which has historically, like you talked about, Timmy Chang having a fun offense, has been somewhat stingy enough in the Mountain West to become competitive, in which they have been, and they are 7-3 right now, second in the Mountain West. It's a log jam right now. How many teams are 4-2 in the Mountain West, with a couple of them playing each other? And of course, UNLV, Hawaii, both 4-2, looking to duke it out and potentially have a chance to represent their conference in the conference title game.
Well, I want to point out some stuff for Hawaii as well. So UNLV, you talked about their rushing attack has been phenomenal. If you kind of look at it though, how big of an impact is Jaden Thomas, man? He is one of the most underrated, least talked about running backs in all of college football. He is a monster in the year 2025, a monster. And when you missed him last week, like, you kind of saw the rushing attack slow down a little bit. Like, there is a staggering difference between him and what you have behind him. And generally, when you look at rushing attacks, like, you don't feel that kind of same concern a lot of the times. But I do feel a little bit more concerned with that, especially because I kind of like what Hawaii's got up front. I also like Peter Manuma, the versatile kind of hybrid player coming down, making plays in the run game. Jackie Johnson, Dejon Benton. Holy moly, has he been an absolute home run in the transfer portal? Get this player from USC, right? Who, by the way, played significant snaps at USC. Like, I shouldn't say significant, like he was playing over guys, like, but he played like actual real college football snaps in a power conference. Transfers to New Mexico to be with Bronco Mendenhall, doesn't play because he tears his bicep, and now he is here and he's absolutely wrecking the Mountain West. Wrecking the Mountain West. If he gets involved early in this run game, generating some negative plays, and has UNLV playing from behind, I mean, that's definitely a problem. Now, I wouldn't say that this Hawaii team's necessarily built to play with a lead. That's kind of the gift that is Timmy Chang in this offense in particular. You can find ways to score lots of points, but it's kind of tough to retain those leads and milk clocks when you can't run the ball all that effectively. However, when you look at the metrics, CD, you look at the metrics and you're like, oh gosh, what a terrible rushing attack. Only, 3.6 yards per carry. But when you actually take away sacks and such, like, these running backs are averaging almost 5 yards a carry, right? They're just not running the ball a lot. Like, these running backs don't get more than 10, 11, 12 carries a game. So it would be interesting. I think if Hawaii needed to run the football, I think they could. I don't know if they'd be able to do it against this front, but for UNLV's side, right? Like, what are you going to do about Jackson Harris? Okay, you've given us some serious explosive plays and as a secondary. Now you got an All-American in the slot, right? Amaris Brown Jr. You have him probably Umpafeli Ashlock, right? Who's going to be in that slot. That's just another stud for Hawaii for sure. But can you, in your secondary, show up in this game and cause problems for Alejado, reroute these receivers, find ways to make plays on the football, don't give up those explosive plays? Can you do that? I happen to think that they'll do enough. I think this UNLV team is a little bit more talented than Hawaii, despite me talking them up a lot. I think if Jaden Thomas doesn't play in this game, which is a possibility, I would lean towards Hawaii winning this football game. But with the assumption here tonight, I'm going to assume that Jaden Thomas is playing in this game. I'm not sure, even though I like what Hawaii has done in the front seven this year. I think I'm going to roll with the UNLV and lay the points -2.5 here. The travel too, man. The travel, it hurts, man. If you're on the island, I'm absolutely all over Hawaii in this game.
For sure. And too, the nice thing for Hawaii is they're off a bye too, which will be really nice for them. But the reality is, I don't love them in this spot. Although it is a little homecoming for Alejado, right? Kid from Vegas there, which is awesome. So they do have a couple of those guys. I think Bishop Gorman, about 6 of them on their roster that are all from Vegas. So it'll be fun to see them obviously leaving the island. They've been a little different team on the road this year. Obviously had some success too, but no doubt I do like UNLV. I think they run the ball. I think they control this clock. I think you keep Hawaii off the field. And if you're putting Hawaii in a position, at least defensively, where they have no idea what you can do running or throwing Calandria, even if you don't have Thomas, Dan Mullen schemes it up. They get enough done. It's probably more in a high scoring game. And with that, I'll take the better rushing attack. So why not UNLV?
Louisville is going to SMU, to Dallas. I mean, SMU still has everything on the line. They had a brutal loss, of course, to Wake Forest just a couple weeks back. Wake Forest is sitting at 7-3 right now with some pretty solid wins, and they've just mucked it up against just about everyone. So I don't blame SMU for having a tough game against Wake Forest. Louisville also has had some tough games. They're coming off some stinkers as well these last couple weeks. They of course had the climax win against Miami. They're in the college football playoff conversation, the ACC championship conversation. Stuff starts to derail a little bit. SMU, man, still has a lot to play for, man. Like the ACC's, it's wide open. It is wide open right now. These tiebreakers get a little bit crazy. Uh, SMU's definitely in at 7-1 regardless. But well, no, actually, sorry, not regardless. SMU's in at 7-1 if Pitt beats Georgia Tech and then loses to Miami. If Georgia Tech wins and beats Pitt, then SMU pretty much needs Virginia Tech to beat Virginia. Otherwise, the tiebreakers come down to opponent win percentages, and those can kind of fluctuate these last 2 weeks. But Virginia's kind of has the lead right now, and you can kind of project they might retain that based on some look ahead in those games. So SMU win this game, and then definitely your big Pitt fans this week. But but saying all of that just tells you like that they are still in this thing. And Rhett Lashley's great. I mean, this coaching matchup, CD, this coaching matchup offensively is just incredible. Rhett Lashley squaring off with Jeff Brom. I mean, how are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, gonna be fun to see. Obviously exciting for the conference of the ACC to have a couple of their coaches, on front display here this week. Listen, man, his gut check time, I think, for Louisville. I mean, their statistical profile offensively is not one that you are typically seeing with a Jeff Brom team, right? I know Miller Moss has been inconsistent up and down. I understand that. You've had injuries in the backfield, though. No Isaac Brown has been tough, right? Keyshawn Brown has been fantastic, though, for you in the weeks leading up to this game here. So that is obviously a big shot here. You got to take care of the football. You cannot take too many sacks. I'm talking to you, Miller Moss. Let Chris Bell, Colin Lacey, Jaleel Skinner, some of your guys get after him this week. This SMU secondary, which I think is vulnerable. We've seen them give up explosive plays in the past before. They buckled down. They did some nice things against Miami at home. I understand that. I don't know why. This just feels like a Louisville bounce back. You had all that stuff in the postseason, in the press conference. You had the Jeff Brom rumors. Obviously, kind of calm that down. Even though SMU, you talked about them a little bit off air, being a little bit more desperate, a little bit right there, chomping at the bit, potentially eyes big, going back to the ACC title game for 2 straight years, by the way. What an accomplishment that would be for SMU and Rhett Lashley. But I think Louisville gets him here on the road. They go into Dallas and they get it done. 2.5 is the line SMU's favored at. I'll take Louisville plus 2.5, and I'll take them to win as well.
If you were to tell me, like, hey, Matthew, in a vacuum, all right, this Louisville team is better than SMU, I will absolutely agree with you. I think the talent on this Louisville team is pretty superb. I do think that there's actually a coaching advantage, despite how great I think Rhett Lashley is. I think Jeff Brom at his best. There are not a lot of coaches better than Jeff Brom at his best. Okay. But this is not a vacuum that we're playing in here. Like you mentioned, SMU backs against the wall. They still have talent. They have been incredibly opportunistic as a defense. All right. Louisville, they can turn the ball over. All right. They're absolutely prone to turning the football over. On the road here, I think SMU. SMU will be at home, but going on the road to SMU, I think that makes a big difference. I think the desperation from SMU and the urgency makes a big difference here. I think you could absolutely see one of those Jeff Brown master classes from Louisville and Miller Moss playing a great game, throwing for 300 plus yards. And if he takes care of the football, I think they got a really good chance. And I happen to think that Kewan Brown is a phenomenal football player. I really don't think that. I mean, Isaac Brown is a phenomenal football player as well, but this is one of those ones where it's like I think you have a really good backfield and a strong rushing attack, regardless of who's back there for you. So I think having Isaac Brown obviously is a plus, but I don't necessarily think that that's a deal breaker for them. So I could absolutely see Louisville win this game. This was a really tough one for me to pick here, but I am gonna go. I am gonna go with SMU. I just think that they find a way to get it done. Both of these quarterbacks have kind of been there before, like been in the moment, like in very key spots against very good teams late in the season with a lot of opportunities for their teams to uh, make great pushes for greater postseason aspirations. So I don't doubt either of these quarterbacks' ability to come and step up here in the moment. I do think Kevin Jennings has a little bit more of that it factor to them, despite I'm not even going to call it a downtick of a year. I don't think people are paying attention to it as much because SMU isn't winning as much as they were last year. But I still think Kevin Jennings is playing pretty decent football, and I think he finds a way to get it done here.
He has been banged up too, and while he put up 300 yards against Boston College, it's Boston College, right? And two, it was an inefficient 300 yards, 50% completion percentage, 16 of 32. I do wonder
That's
if
who he is, though.
I know. I do wonder if he was a little bit banged up. I know, he got banged up in the Miami game. He was probable, questionable all week. So, we'll see. And this Louisville defense, passing wise, is the best defense statistically in the ACC. They got a couple pass rushers there, some good defensive backs there as well. Very opportunistic defense that Louisville brings to the table that, could give Kevin Jennings problems. And we have seen him be prone to turnovers in bunches, right? And
In
that
big games.
in big games, and so that could be something to keep your eye on. Now it's at home, which is huge for SMU. This is just gut here. This is gut here going with the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have two super opportunistic defenses. It's like I feel like Louisville's defense in a vacuum is just good. I think SMU's defense has been patched by some big plays and some big moments. So will SMU's defense get those? That's a really good question. Uh, I don't I don't disagree with you taking Louisville CD. I'm just going to roll. I don't disagree with anyone who thinks Louisville is going to win this game because I think that this is a toss up. And I have had a tough time picking this, but I'm just gonna I'm just gonna it's an emotional game. This is college football. It is the greatest sport on the earth. And I think you just have to factor in a little bit more, I think, into games like this one. We're going to head over to an interesting matchup that maybe y'all did not think we were going to preview. But Washington State is traveling on the road to James Madison. All right. James Madison, 13.5 point favorites in this one at home. Okay. You're looking at this. You maybe even pull up your stats. You may be looking at it and you're like, wow, Washington State's offense is absolutely horrendous. James Madison, oh, they've scored 50 points in 3 of their last 4 games. Like, they're absolutely rolling. All right. I get that. But can we just admit for just a second that Washington State has been a real problem for teams this season? Like a real problem. They haven't won every game. In fact, they've lost a plethora of one possession games and some in very heartbreaking fashion. They have been a problem nonetheless. And this is a James Madison team that is pushing for the playoffs right now. I think if they lose this game, there's a lot more urgency and a lot more help that they're going to need from other teams in the American Conference, in the Mountain West, in order to get their playoff bid for the college football playoffs.
Yeah, this is a fun one here. Obviously, doesn't have any conference implications because this is not a conference game. But it does. I think you talk about playoff implications for James Madison. You got coaching carousel stuff going on, Bob Chesney. And let's give some love to Jimmy Rogers, man. What he has done took over a tough situation, is stringing together the best he can, right? With the Cougars and what they're doing out there, a win away from bowl eligibility, that would be big time there. And what a signature win this would be, I think, for him as he's starting to build that program. This will be interesting. I think if you look at the national ranks, of Washington State offensively, it's not good. They're in the 100, 110s, 120s, and a lot of different metrics. But if you go towards a little bit more of like their advanced metrics, you're seeing them a tick higher there. And I think it's because, of what you've seen at the quarterback position recently, with Ekos getting in there, and getting a little bit better quarterback play from the Cougars. And on the other side there, James Madison, man, they're really freaking good. They get after folks. Of course, you've got Barnett. Of course, you've got a couple different running backs. Defensively, they get after the quarterback. They're on 26 sacks. They got 10 interceptions. A lot of good things there. Defensively, metrics that you like to see. And of course, in a weaker Sun Belt, admittedly, we love the Fun Belt. We absolutely adore the Fun Belt. But they have played some of the worst teams in the Sun Belt. They have played in a weaker division in the Sun Belt, but they've handled business and they've taken care of business. They also had a chance to go on the road and beat Louisville all the way back in September. So they're trying to build that resume there with Washington State, late in November here. I think this is a statement spot here for James Madison at home. 13.5. You have to get it done. Give me the Dukes.
I think the Dukes win. All right. I think they find a way to win. I will be taking Washington State to cover in this one. CD, look, James Madison, all right, I know they've done it on the ground countless times this year. They've just plowed through everyone, okay? I wouldn't call their run defense of Washington State their ultra strength of this defense. But what if I point something out to you, CD? What if I told you that James Madison has only played one top 40 opponent in adjusted defense this year and only scored 14 points on them?
And that was Louisville.
That was Louisville. What if I told you that Washington State is a top 40 opponent adjusted defense this year?
I would believe that.
And honestly, quite frankly, Jake Dicker, defensive guy when he was there, and he did a great job. And you had one of your better defenses that you've seen at Washington State. I forget if it was, I think it was 2024. No, maybe it was 2022.
It was the year,
one of your better
first
defenses.
Year Cam Ward, yeah.
Yeah, first year Cam Ward. You had one of your better defenses that you've seen at Washington State in a long time. This defense right now, in my opinion, is significantly better than that. And you don't even have, you do have some really nice football players on this team. But you just have a team playing in unison. You got a lot of guys that were playing, for Jimmy Rogers last year. Like, you just have a lot of continuity and unison and an understanding of their job and what they got to do. They gave Ole Miss problems, and Ole Miss was at home. They gave Virginia problems. They gave Toledo problems, right? Now, there were some explosive teams early in the season. North Texas, Washington, all right, obviously put up some points. But since September 27th, Washington State gave up 3 points to Colorado State, 24 to Ole Miss, 22 to Virginia, 7 to Toledo, 10 to Oregon State in a loss, unfortunately, and 3 to Louisiana Tech. They are playing really good defense right now. So what happens, right, if all of a sudden James Madison has a pretty decent defense, right? What happens if James Madison only scores 21 points, right? That's probably enough to get you a win, but I think there's a situation where Washington State makes it interesting like that. Is that crazy to say?
I don't think at all. If you look at, and say what you want about FPI, but this would be the James Madison's second best FPI win, in of the season, which is crazy. Also, too, I do want to bring up a little bit of factoid here. There is some coaching history between Bob Chesney and Jimmy Rogers. Of course, a couple of notable FCS head coaches. Jimmy Rogers, of course, at South Dakota State. Bob Chesney from Holy Cross. They played each other just a couple years ago, right? South Dakota State was the number 1 seed. Holy Cross was the 8th seed, I believe. South Dakota State did win 42-21. The quarterback for Holy Cross was Matthew Sluka, who's the backup now at James Madison. Little fun things there. South Dakota State's quarterback, Mark Gronowski, starting quarterback at Iowa. Just thought I'd throw that in there. It was Jimmy Rogers' defense at South Dakota State that really did shut down Holy Cross, and put up some good numbers there. So just thought I'd throw it out there. A little fun, for us in college football, because it is the drama. We love it. There's so much stuff going on. These are two hell of a coaches too.
Let's move on to the Big 12 here. Baylor going to Arizona. Why do we want to talk about this game? I'll tell you. Because we wanted to talk about this game. I mean, we haven't really gotten a chance to talk about Arizona, CD, so far this season, but we have gotten to talk quite a bit about Baylor. But what Arizona is doing with Brent Brennan in his year 2, rather impressive. I mean, they bare cabinets, basically. I mean, sure, you had Noah Fafita, Ted McMillan, but bare cabinets when he got there. You had a terrible season 1, all right? So what does Brent Brennan do? Okay. He cans all of his coordinators, says, I didn't do this right. Let me try again. Well, guess what? I think he figured it out. All right. Because Arizona is playing some really good football right now. Some wins, Cincinnati, Kansas, Colorado. I mean, they ripped off 3 in a row. They almost pulled one off against Houston there in the fourth quarter. That would have been pretty cool. But they took BYU to overtime at home. And of course, they're going to be playing at home against Baylor this year. Arizona, for their secondary getting absolutely plucked, all right, 2 years ago and having a not so good one last year. Johnny Nansen, your DB's coach, goes over to Texas. All of a sudden, I mean, look at your secondary right now. It is good. You got some dang good football players. And if you're going to be, looking at Michael Trigg, across the middle there, I mean, you got a couple of really nice safeties there and a corner that you really like there if you're an Arizona fan. And I think ends up being a pretty good matchup against this Baylor team, who does have some serious firepower on the offense side of the ball. Sawyer Robertson is chucking the ball. He's been absolutely, he's been good distributing the football because he's got these weapons. He's got Josh Cameron. He's got Kobe Wilson. He's got Ashton Hawkins. Michael Trigg has been absolutely insane at tight end. He's been a menace. He had a couple drops early last week, but he's been a monster. And Bryson Washington looks fully healthy right now. There's a lot to like from this Baylor team and a lot to be nervous about if you're the Arizona Wildcats. But CD, I don't know. I look at this one. Arizona's favored by 6.5, and I kind of like the Wildcats in this one.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head here. It will be, the matchup between, the secondary of Arizona and how good they've been. And of course, the passing attack of Sawyer Robertson and Baylor. We kind of talk about it with this Baylor team. They have one way to win all year, and they haven't had success doing it. They're 5-5 right now, fighting for bowl eligibility. Does their defense keep them in the game long enough to be able to run the football? Bryson Washington finally looking like himself. You've got a couple of freshmen like there, Knighton and Turner as well offensively. You talked about all the firepower through the air that they can do. The damage has been being gashed in all phases, but most specifically, the rushing attacks. Baylor's, 15th out of 16 teams defensively in rushing yards per game in the Big 12. Utah just ran for 380 yards on them at Baylor, right? It's not very good right now. It is a rough sledding there for the Bears defensively, and Dave Randa, who is a defensive guy. And now you're going on the road to Arizona, and I understand that Arizona is a little bit more friendly through the air, and they do like to throw the football with Fafita and some of their receivers. You still got Mahdi, still got some good players there offensively, and it doesn't matter who it is or what kind of attack they've had so far. Teams have had success against Baylor running the football. It's a big week for Arizona too. They got the naming rights, right? The Casino del Sol over there, in Tucson, which is huge for them. Baylor has a lot of off the field issues as well with the athletic director and everything going on with that. Just feels like momentum is building for this Arizona team. You talked about why do we want to preview this game. Part of the reason was Arizona, man, deserves to give their flowers, man. I understand that they're 4-3 and probably out of the playoff and Big 12 race. Never say never, with the Big 12. I'm not sure how the tiebreakers will work for them. Looks like they are out of it, but the reality is they deserve it, man. They've had a hell of a season, and what could have been. They are a couple plays here and there, from being right atop that conference there and being ranked pretty high, in this college football season. But happy for Brent Brennan and the Wildcats. I'm on Arizona as well here. 6.5, I think is what we're picking it at. I love the Wildcats in the spot. At home, I'll eat it up.
And the margins for them being 7-3 versus 9-1. I mean, think about Trey Smith's injury, right? You're talking about NFL type prototype body, like wondering like what kind of development we were going to see from him this year. And I wouldn't say he started out super hot, but he gets hurt, for the remainder of the year. You don't even get to see him develop late in this year. Like, you wonder what he could have done in a game against BYU that went to overtime, or a game like Houston that you lost by 3. I mean, the margins there were pretty slim, but this defense has been phenomenal, man. It's been really good. Deshaun McKnight, Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, Traden Stukes. In the secondary, it has been phenomenal. It has been really nice, which is that secondary alone gives me a lot of confidence against this Baylor team. I think Baylor's going to have to try to run the football. And you mentioned Arizona's rushing attack maybe not being uh, their strength on offense. I feel like though it could be. Like they have 3 guys that they like there. They like Cooley. Ishmael Mahdi, we've seen him for years now in college football. He's been really Riscano is a good football player. Like you don't even know which week it's going to be which running back. It is a true committee. You are getting a fresh set of legs every drive with this Arizona offense. Not to mention, how many NFL offensive linemen have you lost over the last 3 seasons, 2 seasons, whatnot? And the absolute turnaround that we've seen from this offensive line and this coaching staff, like Brent Brennan was a really good hire. Right? I don't know how it's going to work out these next 2, 3 seasons with him, but boy, does it seem like he's doing a lot of work right now. The sacks, you look at the sack numbers, you're like, oh my gosh, they've given up 28 sacks. Like, I would argue that 10 of those are probably Noah Fafita's fault. He is the second longest time to throw in the conference, only behind Caden Salter of Colorado. You just look at this offensive line in general. I think it's been a lot better, right? He also has the third highest amount of dropbacks in the conference as well. So, sure, you look at the sack totals. I think there's more to the story than just that number. I think this offensive line has drastically improved. And by the way, uh, you had some shifting around, that you had to figure out at the beginning of the season before you even had your guys, right? Ty Buchanan, Chuba May, I mean, phenomenal players that they've really turned out to be. Michael Wooten got the bench. I mean, May came in there for Wooten because I believe Wooten was starting there at guard early in the season. Unless an Arizona fan wants to correct me on that one. And then you just had movement early on, and then it seems like that they've really figured it out. So I am really happy with what Brent Brennan has done for this program in just 1 year, figuring out the coaching staff, recognizing his weaknesses, finding good football players, surrounding Noah Fafita with talent, putting him in good situations, running a great offense. It's been really impressive. Now for Baylor and the future of the Bears and Dave Aranda's future there, this is a big game for them too, man, because you win this game on the road. Like, I think that gives you, I don't know if it gives you more breathing room, Dave Aranda as a coach, but I really thought that this Baylor team was going to be significantly better than what they put out this year. The defensive side of the ball, as you mentioned, has really let them down in most games, right? You could argue. I mean, the UCF game, they obviously showed up and showed out big time, but I, I don't know, man. You're losing quite a bit of talent next year on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of veterans are gone. I mean, this feels like a pretty big game to me. Like, that could mean a lot to a program to send you in the right direction. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. And two, it doesn't get easier either. Like, not only are you trying to make a bowl game, but 7-5, 8-5 with a bowl game win looks a lot better than 5-7, which is definitely on the table with Arizona on the road and Houston to finish things off with. which will not be easy games. Neither of those will. And of course, you are 6.5-point dogs on the road, starting with this one on Saturday on TNT. Golly, man.
Missouri State is traveling to Kennesaw State, and the CUSA is absolutely, it's going nuts right now. The top four teams in this conference, the Jax State, Missouri State, Western Kentucky, Kennesaw State. I mean, it's a gauntlet at the top right there. You got some way better teams than people believe, or what people will have you believe about this conference. Obviously, lower third of this conference is not particularly great, but games like this is why you tune into the CUSA. Okay, you got an absolute interesting style of play clash right here. And you got, Missouri State, their first year in FBS football, and they're 7-3 right now. And Jacob Clark is looking like the best quarterback in the conference by, in my opinion, a pretty decent margin. Then you got Kennesaw State with a first-year head coach. They're only second year in FBS level as well, and they're playing really well, and they're running the football, and they're finding ways to do it with two quarterbacks, and they're playing great defense. Like, there's a lot to like about both of these teams. And I think you look at some jobs that may open up from some dominoes, right? I think that these two coaches could be brought up in some conversations. I don't know that either one's going to be leaving anytime soon for either of these teams, but I think that there could be some conversations had in the coaching carousel when you see a bunch of coaches get plucked from here and here, dominoes start to fall. Oh, who's going where? It could get interesting in that regard. But CD, what do you like about this game?
Yeah, that's where I started too. Was the coaching matchup there? Ryan Beard and Jerry Mack. We talked about Jerry Mack in this offseason, of course, being a first-time coach. We did our coaching carousel video, our deep dive on the Jerry Mack, the staff he was bringing in, all that stuff. We talked about like his expectations. Our expectations for him and his program was to compete for bowl games. Check. You're 7-3 right now. Yeah, that is awesome in year one. Has it been pretty all year? Yeah, you had some close wins for sure. It's ugly losses. I get that. But you know what? You are right there competing for a spot in the CUSA, championship game, of course. Going to a bowl game and then some with opportunities to add on to that, which is awesome. And of course, for Ryan Beard, Missouri State, son-in-law of Bobby Petrino, bro. Son-in-law of Bobby P. We love that there. Of course, Ryan Beard succeeded him as Missouri State's head coach in 2023. The offensive coordinator, of course, is Nick Petrino, the son of Bobby as well. A lot of fun stuff there that's going on down there in Georgia this weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. And of course, you talked about Jake Clark. Got a couple quarterbacks for Kennesaw State. Obviously, last week they struggled. Amari Odom, Dexter Williams, neither of them was very good. Williams probably a little bit better, but the reality was Jacksonville State just cooked them. The entire time there. And what needs to happen here for Kennesaw State defensively, they got to be better. They got to be better than that. They've been pretty good this year defensively, and they got gashed against Jacksonville State. Of course, that the turnovers didn't help at all. But with this Missouri State offense there, Ryan Beard, Petrino there, Jacob Clark, you talked about, they got Shamari Lawrence offensively on the running game. You got a couple different receivers. They spread the ball around. Credit to Jacob Clark and this offense staff. They've had 6 different people lead them in receiving yards this year. 6 different. In every single conference game they've had a new leading receiver. That is freaking awesome. Missouri State also has played a ton of close one-score games. They are 5-1 in those games. Hats off to the coaching staff for that. That's the difference in this kind of conference here. I'm looking at the standings right now in the CUSA. Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Missouri State, all with 1 or 0 losses. That's awesome. Some new blood in the FBS here, having success early on. The one question I do have, which I probably should have looked into, does Missouri State qualify for the CUSA championship?
I'm not really sure 100% on that one. However, I'm going to look at, you talked about their wide receiver group and like just how not only like do they have different options at that wide receiver spot, like they're so incredibly versatile. All right, you got the Dash Lukes, right? The short speedster guys. You got Johnson, who can play inside, he can play outside. You got the big-bodied youngster freshman who's been an absolute monster for you. Uh, it it really is nice. Like you hear Jerry Mack talk about this group as well, and like absolute high praise. There should be the highest of praise for Jacob Clark and his set of receivers that he's put in great positions so far this year. And Robinson too. I mean, another guy who's can play inside or outside. I look at this and I think that there's some really specific things that you got to look at in this game that I think are going to be key differences. All right, Gabriel Benyard, right, the slot wide receiver, running back, converted wide receiver for Kennesaw State. I think it's going to be huge in this game. How do you shut him down? I I don't know that they will. The secondary has had trouble, tackling stuff, and Gabriel Benyard, absolutely great after the catch. Obviously, we know he could break tackles as a former running back. He's been really good. Is he going to be a problem for Dylan Dixon on the other side there, Missouri State? I happen to think so. I think that could be a real problem, this rushing attack. Of course, is Missouri State ready to stop that? What Kennesaw State's going to bring, this physicality. However, if you look at the Missouri State side, or defensively, I mean, for Kennesaw State, there's two things going on here. Okay, Missouri State's offensive line is pretty not good. It's pretty not good. And Kennesaw State has some absolute dudes in the front seven. All right, you're probably going to have an all conference linebacker. You're probably going to have two or three all conference defensive linemen here, including Elijah Hill, who's your third down pass rushing specialist, who I imagine will absolutely have his leash come off, on those third downs because he got some tackles that have just not been very good. I mean, Abubadike Nabugu has the most penalties of any offensive lineman in this conference right now, playing left tackle for you. That's going to be a tough matchup on third downs for you. You've given up 39 sacks this year. And I'm not even going to say they're all, like, a lot of these are Jacob Clark's fault, and some of them will be for sure. But you get to a point and you watch some of the film, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's some issues here with this offensive line, and this defensive line will absolutely take care of that. Tyler Dunlap has been an absolute monster from the interior. Marcus Patterson on the front. I mean, he'll probably be an all-conference player. Yeah, you have really good football players here in this front seven. However, your secondary has got this year. And Caleb Alford, trip to the hospital this past weekend. Hope he's all right, but I don't imagine him playing in this game. So you already have a secondary that's pretty shaky, and then you're down, one of your starting cornerbacks. Like, if you don't find a way to get pressure on Jacob Clark consistently, I think you're going to find yourself in a very troubling spot in this game, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I was not totally dialed into yours. I was trying to find out if they are postseason eligible. They are not. The worst
Brutal.
fucking rule, excuse my language, the worst rule in college
Don't excuse
football.
yourself.
Them, Delaware, are not eligible for this USA Conference title, which I understand that can be, whatever the conferences can choose that. Not even eligible for a bowl game. Now, what can happen is, we've seen it in the past, if you do have teams that, if they're not enough 6-win teams, then they'll go down to our above 6 wins, not eligible teams, and then they'll go down to our 5-win teams with the APR or whatever and all that stuff. Of course, Akron not eligible in the APR. Had to bring that in there. But yeah, still makes this game so much more important because of what it means for Kennesaw too, right? And all that good stuff. So yeah, here we are in 2025, still trying to figure things out. But listen, what an awesome spot here for the CUSA. Happy for Jerry Mack too, and what their offense brings. It'll be interesting though. One thing I am kind of looking at too is the turnovers. Kennesaw doesn't force
Sure.
a ton of turnovers, man. Especially, and Jacob Clark, he's done a pretty good job, I think, taking care of the football in spots here. Of course, he's had his moments for sure, but I mean, the reality is, it's a guy I trust with the ball in his hands. 19 to 8 touchdown to interception ratio is good, not great, but it'll play. In a game like this here, taking care of the football, winning on third downs, things like that. If you're going on the road from Missouri State over to Kennesaw, those are things you're going to have. You cannot give them, freebies in that defense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm still drawn back to the Missouri State keys to win this football game, protect Jacob Clark somehow. I don't know how you're going to do it against a defensive front. And then if you could just get the ball out quickly and take advantage of the secondary that's banged up, no Caleb Alford, like I said, it could get really interesting. I have Kennesaw State winning this game. I do not have them covering, though. I think Missouri State potentially keeps this close. I think backdoor cover is in play here. Maybe a 35-31, final minute touchdown by Missouri State. I think that's in play for sure. But I don't know that I trust Missouri State's defense, but I don't know that I completely trust Kennesaw State's defense in the secondary, despite my high praise for their front seven.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of cop out here. I think it'll just be a close game. I think that's like unfortunate I had to say that, so I'm gonna be with you here. I'll take Kennesaw to win, but Missouri State to cover because it will be a one-score game. And the reality too here has been in one-score games, Missouri State has been damn good in them, so they absolutely have a chance here to go on the road and steal one from the Owls.
By the way, they're 4-1 on the road. That's just
Beard,
throwing it out there.
man.
It doesn't phase them. It doesn't phase them. I mean, their only loss on the road was to USC the first week of the season. They've won every other game on the road so far this season.
It's also because they
Love to see
hosted
that.
SMU, which is awesome.
Well,
that was a
that
close
is
game
true.
too. That was a close game for a while.
Yeah, it was 14-10 at halftime. It wasn't until like the third quarter touchdown, a fourth quarter touchdown, and a scoreless second half for Missouri State and 3 Jacob Clark picks. That kind of puts you out of that one. But yeah, I'm juiced for this game. I'm anticipating the star players being star players. I hope Jacob Clark shows up and shows out. I hope this defense gets after him for Kennesaw State, and I hope Gabriel Benyard does his thing. And I'm really excited about this one. USC is traveling to Oregon. This is crazy college football playoff implications because obviously USC fans believe that they're still in this college football playoff race, and I think with the win over Oregon, you could definitely make an argument. Uh, what's funny about Oregon's resume, though, you look at Oregon's resume, CD. Okay, I want you to find, all right, the win that Oregon has against a college football playoff ranked team.
It's not going to be on
Currently,
there. It's not going to be on there.
there's none. There's none. Not a single one. Iowa, obviously, part of that was you beating them,
And
So
then
you did
USC
play
beating
a
them.
role in that. But if you lose here, one, you're not making the Big Ten championship for sure because you're still already probably on the outside looking in because you anticipate Indiana and Ohio State winning, even though some stuff could happen there. You are on the outside looking in, Oregon, if you lose this game. And it wouldn't be the first time, right? We've seen playoff caliber teams get left out of the college football playoffs. But I think it'd be really disappointing because this is a team that I definitely want to see in the playoffs because I think this is a phenomenal team. I think it's one of the more talented teams in the entire country. I love watching Dante Moore play. Even more than that, I love watching their run game just shred through people. Freaking defenses look like Swiss cheese. All right, when they play against this Oregon rushing attack, and the defense obviously has loads of talent on it as well, and it's shown the last couple of weeks for sure. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, though. I mean, you got a game, former Pac-12 teams that have played each other quite a bit. Jaden Mayava, obviously playing some decent football, but the rushing attack for USC has kind of been the revelation for them and been the difference maker in this offense. It's given them a new dimension, and not to mention the subtle defensive improvements haven't hurt either. But these are two good football teams playing in Austin Stadium this weekend.
Yeah, not to mention the coaching matchups too. I think offensively, with Lincoln Riley and Will Stein going up against, Tosh Lupoy, Dan Linney for Oregon. You got Danton Lynn for USC. A lot of good coaches there, a lot of talent. You said up and down the roster here. It'll be a great environment out there in Eugene. They have an extra day as well because they did have that game on Friday against Minnesota where they stomped the Gophers. You're looking at common opponents here and how they fared against Iowa, right? Just a couple weeks ago, they've played each other. Within the last 2 weeks, both teams have played Iowa, and USC held their own. Right now, obviously, it was different circumstances. at home versus away, all that kind of stuff there. But I think USC has a chance to win this football game. The reality is, like, it's gonna revolve around stopping the run. And that's something that you either believe they can do or they cannot. And the reality is it may or may not even be on USC. It's just that's how good Oregon has been running the football this year. A stable of running backs, elite offensive lines. Hats off to Will Stein for being creative with it, especially with some of your injuries offensively and your skill position room. You get Sadiq back, who by the way is a hell of a blocker. To hopefully you're getting healthier in that wide receiver room, and Dante Moore makes enough plays when he is called upon that you just lean on this running attack and you put USC and Jade Maeva in spots to turn the ball over, to make plays. And a lot of times, like he a lot of good with Maeva. Sometimes you got to take the bad with it. And he has had bonehead play after bonehead play. It seems like a lot of the times on the road, he's made those tough plays, those bad decisions, and they've cost him. And I think they're going to cost him again here. The line's at 9.5. Like Vegas is all over Oregon right now for good reason, because they are a really good football team. But for USC, this is a massive spot here. We talked about a couple weeks ago. I specifically was talking about Iowa as a chance to hang their hat on an Oregon win and put them into college football playoff considerations. This is USC's spot here. Leave no doubt about that. An 8-2 USC team who only has to play UCLA right at home next weekend. No, never say never. I get that. I understand. A lot can happen there in LA, but listen, this is massive. Like, I don't think people realize, it's just because how quiet they've been since the Illinois loss, as well as the Notre Dame loss on the road, both on the road, by the way. This USC team is one win away essentially, in a under 10-point spread from going to the college football playoff. And I think we're not really accepting that as college football, people until they actually go out and beat Oregon. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm on Oregon here. With all that being said, I like them to run the football. Defensively, they're damn good. They'll get after Maeva. They'll try to stop Makai Lemon and Lane. They probably won't, but the reality is they're going to score so many points it won't even matter.
They could, though. I mean,
You get the best secondary.
Oregon's secondary is I don't know if it's the best secondary in the entire country, but it is
in the Big Ten.
Up there. Metrically, it's one of the best for sure. You can't even argue that. So they have been dominant there. They have found ways to stop, if some of that is some of the quarterbacks that they have played.
Yep.
Particularly in the last couple weeks.
Hey.
Look, love me some Drake Lindsay, but on the road, it's been tough for Minnesota this year. But I look at this I'm with you, right? USC has given up over 5.5 yards per carry the last 4 games to opponents' leading rushers. Jaden Malva, you mentioned struggles on the road. 3 straight road games with an interception. Those are costly mistakes. However, against this elite secondary, if Jaden Malva throws for 350 yards and takes care of the football, absolutely they're in this football game. And you get an absolutely legendary moment and Jaden Mayav is probably going down, in already a storied program where you're like, man, we're going to talk about him in 10 years. Like, man, remember that Jaden Mayav game, against Oregon where he went into Autzen Stadium and just found a way to get them in the college football playoffs and knocked Oregon out of the college football playoffs?
Yeah.
That would be nuts. That would be absolutely nuts. I dream of that happening. I think that would be the best way that this story ends here. But I do think that this Oregon team may be a little bit overwhelming, especially at home, in the way that you talked about the ground game. I think Dante, we don't talk about this. Like when you're an underdog, what do you need to do, right? You need to get stops, turnovers help, and you need to take care of the football. Oregon has been one of the best teams in the entire country taking care of the football. So I don't know that this weekend is the week that they start giving up the football. Now turnovers happen, and
It's random.
Pretty random sometimes, especially fumbles. But I think that the running back stable has done a good job taking care of the football. And even Dante Moore, most of the time, I think does a pretty decent job taking care of the football and keeping it out of harm's way. Unlike you talked about Mayava, who, by the way, I still think is probably top 4 quarterback in the Big Ten? Top 5?
Yeah, outside of San Mendoza, Moore.
Could be Mayava.
Yeah, that's probably
where
I'm
you put
at.
Damon Williams, right? I mean, I'm probably Mayava over Damon Williams. Yeah, yeah. Gronowski? No, Kaliak Manis. No, I'm just saying, like, I we, we're when you're playing against Oregon, you have to grade on a different scale, right? So Mayava is a phenomenal quarterback. We're not saying he's a bad quarterback at all. In fact, you know how many SEC teams would probably take Jaden Mayava as their starting quarterback right now? Like a stupid amount of them. There's probably 3 teams in the SEC that maybe wouldn't take Jaden Mayava. So I, with that being said, though, I'm laying the 9.5 with Oregon with you. I don't feel particularly great about that. Backdoor cover, obviously in play here, but I do think that even though USC does have a lot of the talent, they have the elite offensive line. I think there are a couple edges here that gives Oregon a chance to really run away with this game, quite literally at home.
Couple big stats here. I think I'm looking at Maeva in losses right against Illinois, against Notre Dame on the road, 42 and 43 passing attempts. That is not where you want him to be. As much as we love him, right? You want King Miller and those guys touching the ball a lot more offensively. You want to be able to get in that kind of rhythm where you're not playing from behind, right? In that game, CJ Carr, for Notre Dame, Luke Altmaier, they had 26 passing attempts each, right? So that's 16 less attempts, for the opposing team than yourself. I understand there's different scheme and all that kind of things, but Notre Dame was able to run the ball 44 times, Illinois 35. Like those kind of trends are not sustainable against Oregon in Autzen this year, especially with the way they are constructed. You want to see that attempts a little bit more even. Now you test Dante Moore, he will make you pay. That's kind of going to be one of those things like you're just going to have to live with it and you're going to have to score points. But you just don't get gashed if you're USC. Just try not to get gashed. Have success running the ball on your own and don't put Maeva in spots where he has to play hero ball.
More than even just having success running the football, don't give up on the
Yep.
run game. Because
Yep.
Indiana didn't. You'd have to go back to September when Oregon played against Northwestern and scored some garbage time long touchdowns. All right. To find a game where an opponent's running backs against Oregon averaged more than 4 yards per carry. Okay. So chances are, USC fans, you are not going to rush for 5 yards a carry. You're not going to do it against this team. But if you stick to the ground game and you shorten this game and you find enough stops on defense, just enough stops, and Jaden Allen makes enough plays on third down, just don't abandon the run game. All right. I think as much as you want to have success against the run game, I don't know in the run game, I don't know how realistic that is for you, right? Fernando Mendoza made some big time plays and big time moments. You also had some defensive plays, some turnovers that really helped you in that Indiana game. But I think like a really important aspect of that game that's quite overlooked was the fact that Indiana didn't give up running the football, particularly when they had the lead for sure. Like they didn't feel like they had to throw the football, despite having currently the Heisman favorite as their quarterback. They didn't feel like they had to throw the football. And I think that if you're USC, you shouldn't feel like you have to throw the football, even if you're, I don't know, down 10 in like the third quarter. You shouldn't feel like you have to just be chucking the ball, like you said, 40, 42 times a game in this one. Pitt going to Georgia Tech. The absolute keystone game in the ACC this weekend. And perhaps, I mean, of the year? Like, I feel like just because of the brands of these two schools, like people aren't truly taking in the actual importance of this game. SMU fans are going to be absolutely eyes glued to the screen in this one, right? Pitt traveling to Georgia Tech as only 2.5-point dogs. So Vegas on a neutral field believes that Pitt and Georgia Tech are pretty equal teams. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you a lot of things, but I'll tell you this: Pitt, phenomenal against the run, something that Georgia Tech has. It's been a staple as a part of their offense. Mason Heichel, been an absolute revelation at quarterback. Had a tougher game against Notre Dame. Freshman quarterback against one of the best teams in the entire country. You're going to have those days. Interesting coaching matchup here: Narduzzi and Cade Bell versus Brent Key. It is going to be a very good football game, and you got does Haynes King have more hero moments in him? Because you're coming off of a week where, yeah, Pitt got absolutely floored by Notre Dame, but you're also coming off of a week Georgia Tech conveniently escapes against Boston College on a last second field goal that could have gone violently wrong. Georgia Tech is definitely vulnerable. Just ask Wake Forest how they feel about, walking out of there without a win, going to overtime. Those Boston College fans that felt like they could have won that game. So yeah, both of these teams only with one loss in conference with an absolute chance. Pat Narduzzi said it best last week. He's like, I don't even care about the Notre Dame game. I gotta win. We gotta win the next two games after that to get to the ACC championship. And he's right about that. I think every game should matter, but this one in particular is going to mean a lot to these fans, to these players, and to these coaches. It's going to be awesome. Oh, the mute button.
Just brutal, man.
Just brutal.
An hour into the recording, man, and just caught by the mute button. All right, here we go with Georgia Tech and Pitt. Couple of really storied programs, of course. Pitt and Georgia Tech have a couple legends themselves. This rivalry dates back all the way to 1918, right? They've been playing for over a century. Pitt, though, has controlled the last, decade or so, right? Won 11 of the last 15 meetings. Yeesh. Yeesh, 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 right? Both these teams offensively, especially recently, have really, really soared. I think, Pitt in the ACC, they're first in scoring offense. Georgia Tech is top three. Georgia Tech likes to run the football a lot bit more than Pitt, but Mason Heinschel and what Pitt has done to that offensive passing game, Cade Bell as well, has been kind of revelational. We didn't get to see it against Notre Dame last week. I think you saw moments of it. You saw flashes, you saw drops, you saw a couple uncharacteristically, poor throws from Heinschel. That's just like what happens, I think, when you go up against a top 10 team in the country and Notre Dame, who came ready to play and with their backs against the wall. They needed to win and make a statement against you for Pittsburgh. Now it's do or die against Georgia Tech here. Now your back's against the wall. You see blood in the water with Georgia Tech, who, my goodness, man, just does it every week somehow. Of course, they didn't get it done a couple weekends ago against North Carolina State, but they are vulnerable, absolutely, especially defensively through the air, right? They can get it done here, man. 2.5 at Bobby Dodd. You know what though? I like the Yellow Jackets here. I like Brand Key in this spot here. Give me the Yellow Jackets -2.5. Trust me, Haynes Kings here.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. I feel absolutely terrible about it. Like, there is a world. We just saw Dylan Lonergan, which, by the way, big Dylan Lonergan fans here. Don't want to throw any unnecessary shade, but we just saw him absolutely light up this secondary. And this Georgia Tech defense it's been a bit of a problem for them these last couple weeks. And sure, do you have the number one offense in total yards in the entire country? Yeah, you absolutely do. You do a really nice job getting up and down the field. But for how effective your run game is, especially your quarterback run game, they're low-key not good in the red zone. They're not
Yeah,
good.
it's a problem.
58 touchdown percentage, 58% of touchdowns in the red zone. That's 90th in the country. For a team that has college football playoff aspirations and wanting to win this game against a team that can score from anywhere, right? 30 yards out, 50 yards out in the red zone. Uh, I, I mean, Pitt's red zone defense hasn't been particularly amazing this year. It's been fine. But I just look and I'm like, if you're Georgia Tech and you find success against this Pitt run defense that's been pretty strong all season long until you face Jeremiah Love, who's
Jeremiah Love.
I'll say it, the best player in college football the last month, in terms of like using the eyeball test and just watching him play. Like, he's nuts. He's nuts. So I'm not going to fault you for that. But if you find, yourself moving the ball against a sturdy Pitt defense, but you can't put the ball in the end zone, that could definitely add up because I think Pitt is going to find a way to score on you, even on the road. So I I'm gonna go Georgia Tech. I'm not gonna feel very good about it though. I would not be surprised. There's a world where Pitt wins this thing 37-20. Georgia Tech turns it over on downs a couple times in the red zone. Pitt scores on a couple explosive plays. Maybe Haynes King throws an interception. I don't know. Like there's a world out there where Pitt walks into Bobby Dodd and absolutely implodes on Georgia Tech. We saw it happen with NC State. NC State, when you had a really nice explosive passing attack right there, CJ Bailey was dialed and absolutely lit this team up. You have good quarterbacks against this Georgia Tech team, good or bad quarterback. Like that you can have success against this defense, which is a little bit uncharacteristic. I didn't expect that being something that was going to be a problem heading into the season, considering what we saw last year from Georgia Tech's defense and the vast improvement that we saw from the year prior. Yeah, I'm gonna go Georgia Tech, but boy, I kind of I don't mind Vegas seeing Pitt as a potentially equal or better team than Georgia Tech from a power rating perspective. I don't mind it. Is that crazy? I know not a lot of people have watched Pitt football this year. I'm sure people have watched a lot more of Georgia Tech just because of the national coverage that they've gotten, regarding their quarterback and some of the bigger time national spotlight games that they've seen. And Pitt's big national spotlight game was against Notre Dame and they got walloped. I I think this Pitt team is pretty dang good, man. So Georgia Tech fans, I'm sure you're nervous about it. I would imagine I would be for sure in your spot, but Haynes King has just never let us down. He literally has just never let us down. It's crazy.
Now,
He literally just doesn't do it.
can they lose this game and with some chaos? Because like SMU, right? They're in a tough game. Virginia, every game they play is losable. Like this is not do or die for Georgia Tech right now. You do not have a chance to redeem yourself, right? Because you get Georgia next week, so you are out of the ACC playing after this year. But I think you are still in. But I think that invites a couple other teams back into
Yeah,
contention, and it might lead to some more 3-4 team ties with the two losses.
you would need some help for sure. And then that also it would just be really interesting because then what if Georgia Tech turns around and beats Georgia? That'd be nuts. But that's a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of chaos that can happen here in the ACC. I'm with you. I don't know. I haven't done the math on all the tiebreakers for Georgia Tech yet. It's winning in, for
Yeah.
you. For Pitt, it's I don't know that's exactly winning in for you, Pitt. Uh, I think it actually might be. Well, no, because you got a game next week as well. But it's gonna get interesting, man. It's gonna get interesting.
Yeah, I think they do control their own destiny. But listen, I want to ask you this here. As an A&M guy, or as someone, towards the top 5 seeds, whatever, that 5th or 6th seed is probably going to be playing, potentially one of these two teams. Who would you least rather see? Who scares you the most out of these two teams?
Georgia Tech,
Yes. Yes.
which
Because of the
in
scary
a
eyes.
vacuum, yeah, like I talked about, I don't mind in a vacuum saying Pitt is a better team than Georgia Tech. It's just such a scary thing going against a rushing attack like that and a quarterback that actually has that DNA in him that just like says beyond whatever the situation is, whatever environmental circumstances there are, no matter what the score is, there's something in Haynes King's DNA that doesn't let him give up. Like it does there's something inside of him that just says like, no, we're not out of this. And that DNA has bled onto
Infectious.
every single player on that roster. It is so infectious. It's crazy. And you see like in the big moments, in the overtimes, in the fourth quarters, you just see a different level of Georgia Tech. That's a credit to the strength and conditioning staff. That's a credit to Haynes King, and that's a credit to the work that these guys have all put in under Brent Key. I mean, it is marvelous what this program has turned into in just a couple years, and I understand the Brent Key hype for potentially a Penn State job or other jobs. He's a phenomenal coach, and we've talked about it so many times. He's such a good coach. So that's what kind of scares me a little bit. I think that Brent Key is a better coach than Pat Narduzzi. I think Haynes King's a little bit more scary than Mason Heitschel, even though your Mason Heitschel might be a more prototypical quarterback per se, but I think Haynes King is just a lot more dangerous. Uh, and I feel like Georgia Tech also too like hasn't defensively capitalized. They haven't had a game, and I could be wrong about this, where they've really forced like a crazy amount of turnovers and like totally swung the game. Like the variance mostly has not gone in their favor in terms of turnovers. So if that variance starts swinging the other way, yeah, watch out against if you start scoring in the red zone and taking care of the football, not fumbling the ball. Yeah, no one wants to play this Georgia Tech team in the first round. No way.
If right, it's like here we are waiting for
Yeah,
them, and
if
it's mid-November. But the reality is, we're both on Georgia Tech, and we both be terrified to be playing them in the college football playoff, right? Because of what they do and how tough of them out they're probably going to be.
BYU is going to Cincinnati, and you could be looking at Cincinnati. They're 5-2 record in conference, and being like, okay, are they out of this? What's going on? I don't think they're out of this necessarily. I haven't done the math yet, but you get a win over BYU. The tiebreakers start to get absurd in the Big 12. All right. Not to mention Nippert Stadium. I know Cincinnati just lost to Arizona the other day, but we just got finished talking about Arizona and how good of a football team they are. Cincinnati at home this year has been very good, generally. Uh, just you happen to lose the Arizona game last week. It is what it is. BYU is playing phenomenal football right now. Bear Bachmeyer looks like an absolute stud. The defense is showing up. BYU has the big wins, the big moments, win in multiple ways, win in overtime, win against ranked Utah team in rivalry games. They have done it all, and you look at this on in probably a vacuum, and you're like, man, yeah, this BYU team is better, right, than this Cincinnati team. I think if Cincinnati's defense puts together a game to remember, they can absolutely win this football game. Brendan Sorsby needs to play better than what he did last week, for sure. And he's had really good games where he's elevated, his team and found ways to win football games. But what we've seen from him the last 2 weeks is not good enough. All right, and this BYU defense is no slouch. Jay Hill is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. What a hire. We talk about him all the time. What a hire for Klein Sataki. That's all he would talk about last year. He's like, oh, yeah, I got the guy. I got my guy as a DC. And that was a huge talking point. Like, oh, is there going to be improvements in the secondary? Like, what's going to happen here? Is Klein Sataki going to have a job at the end of 2024? Heck yeah, he is. He's been incredible. So I look at this and I think Cincinnati has a chance to win this football game, but definitely going to be an uphill climb.
Without a doubt. I mean, BYU, not only what they did offensively, TCU last week, but to just stifle Josh Hoover and one of the better offenses in the Big 12 and better quarterbacks in the Big 12 was extremely, extremely impressive. Yeah, they can win in multiple ways here. I think the whole they have to run the ball a bunch and the Bear Bachmeyer can't throw the ball. I think that horse has been beat to death, right? I think that's kind of been proven wrong. Now you run into Texas Tech, little bit different monster there, but Cincinnati's got a damn good front seven, man. You got Golday at linebacker. You got a couple of studs in the interior there with Hunt, and the Don as well, right? Starting to get back to full peak there. You got a couple different guys. I think offensively, Sorsby played his worst game of the year. I expect him to bounce back. What did he have? 3 interceptions. That is very, very unlike him. And what he's done taking care of the football, or 2 interceptions, excuse me, 3 in the last 2 weeks. For Sorsby, and they got a couple running backs there on the home. You talked about at Nippert being a home field advantage for them. I see that ringing true here. I like him in the spot here. Plus 2.5 for Cincinnati. I'll take him. I'll take him to cover. I'll take him to win. Defensively, I know. Look at you smiling there. I know. But the hard part is, like, we talked about them in the offseason. Like, the thing that's going to hold them back or could hold them back is their secondary. with some smaller guys. I look at BYU's roster, and yes, I like Kingston, right? I like Roberts. I don't see a ton of guys that like physically give you problems with their size. And I think that matchup is going to bode well. And you're going to have to put Bear Bachmeier to put things in windows instead of being able to make plays and all that stuff. And what they can do claps in the pocket on him. Listen, I like it. Cincinnati here. You talked about what they can do and mess things up, dirty some things up in the Big 12. They stop their losing streak. They stop their skid. They get a huge win at home.
Man, I mean, we were all witness to the Cincinnati skid of 2024, all right, in October and November. However, I was smiling there because I think I'm with you, which is crazy. And my biggest reason is actually like I look at this BYU team and what they've done. What is their? I always look at what is this team's body of work on the road this year. All right, you had a nice win against East Carolina early in the season. I would argue that that's a different East Carolina team than what you saw, what you're seeing now, which is a really good East Carolina team. But that's still a good win. I'll give you credit for that. You had a rough battle with Colorado, right? In of course, Bear Bachmeier's first month as a starting quarterback. I get that. You had a rough overtime win against Arizona. You had an Iowa State game where you went on the road and you won the turnover battle by 4. I don't know if Rocco Beck just takes care of the football a little bit better in that game. I don't know that you win that game on the road. I think that game, the score of that game is not indicative of how the outcome of that game could have turned out had those turnovers gone a different way. Not to discredit BYU's win, because that was a good win going on the road there in Ames, Iowa. Not a easy win in the Big 12 ever. And then the Texas Tech one, not going to fault you for getting, kind of handled there. I mean, you're looking at one of the best defenses in the entire country, potential national championship contender, Texas Tech. So I just looked at the body of work there on the road, and I'm like, so do we really expect them to play like a flawless game here on the road against Cincinnati? And you mentioned it as well. Like, I think Bear Bachmeier could have success. And if he does, I think they drastically increase their chances of winning this football game. And the Cincinnati secondary was a talking point for us in the preseason. It's been a talking point for us when we're previewing their games. Like, they don't have the size. They don't have necessarily the elite athleticism, the star NFL bodies that you see in some of these other rooms around the country. But like you said, the BYU wide receivers, I don't know that I'm seeing enough dynamic size. You're seeing really good football players in that wide receiver room, but are you seeing guys that can absolutely take over the secondary? They could, but I don't know that that's super likely. Find a way to stop LJ Martin on the ground. Have success on the ground yourself. Brendan Sorsby take care of the football. And I think Cincinnati wins this game, man. I got them plus 2.5. I got them winning this football game just like you at Nippert Stadium. I think it's crazy. We might look back at the CD like come Saturday at 7 p.m. Central, and we're just like, what were we thinking? BYU's just a better football team. And yeah, maybe they are. But I think that there's a spot here for Cincinnati to get a big win in November, something that they have struggled to do the last couple this season so far, and then last season as well. 0 wins for Cincinnati in the month of November over the last 2 seasons. I think they end that skid this Saturday. Is that crazy? I mean, obviously you're in it with me. We might be crazy. I don't know, man. And I feel like I maybe haven't given enough credit to BYU this year at all in any of the games that they're in. I think I picked against them in the Holy War. I picked there was another the Texas Tech game. I believe picked against them as well. I bet against them this year, and I'm picking against them again this week. So look, there may just become a point where I'm just flat out wrong about this team, and I just keep undervaluing it, and they're just way better than either of us are imagining right now. But in that world, BYU gets a win, and they don't exactly lock their spot in the college football playoffs, but then they play a UCF team the next week at home. I would say that they got a pretty good chance of winning that game.
Yeah, and some things going on ahead of them too could lead to some spots opening up, even if they do lose in the Big 12 title game. Now, if you lose again to Texas Tech in emphatic fashion, there's going to be some conversations about leaving them out of the playoffs. And at that point, then it's like, well, why are we having? And it's going to be the whole like, well, why are we having conference championships if they're only going to hurt us? Blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
it
some uncomfortable conversations
for sure.
That's going to do it for our previews of those 8 games right there. Let's head over to the best bets of the week. Last week, CD, I am pissed off at Bill Belichick for calling that timeout. Could have had a positive week for me. Went 3-4. You went 2-3. Your losses being Ohio, Oregon minus 24.5, which
Did I cover?
could have absolutely. Oh, it might have. I thought they won by like 20.
No, that one by
21.
29.
Whoa.
I was
I
gonna
did the
say I
math
had
wrong.
it was 42-13. So I was in the
Wow.
green.
Okay. That's big because then at least one of us was in the green. That's big time. Okay. Well, definitely changing that record right there. Nice. Okay. I love to see that. And I guess I was a Bill Belichick not calling a timeout there with 21 seconds left in the game away from cashing the under in that game. Duke was my big one. Like, boy, did I miss on Duke or what?
A dud. Just a dud.
What a dud. And then the Northwestern Michigan game under that was close to hitting. USF just lost straight up. That was crazy against Navy. That was also a bad play. We move. We move. And if I got 4 this week, I feel pretty good about them. I got a pretty stinky one that I'm not necessarily proud of. But CD, what do you got for us this week? I'll let you start us off.
Yeah, I've got 5. Gonna stay hot here. Missouri at Oklahoma. I know there are some rumors about some quarterback play coming back from Missouri. I don't buy it, and if he does, I don't think he's going to be healthy. Under 43. This feels like a spot where both defenses flex their muscles, that both teams offensively just kind of want to be conservative and not lose the football game. I see a game in the teens. First one to 20 probably wins this spot here. I like the under 43 here. Even though it's a low line, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'm going to roll to the Sun Belt to my absolute breadwinner all season. Give me Southern Miss again. -1.5 on the road against South Alabama. I get Braylon Braxton is hurt. Do we believe he's coming back, CD? Is that the word
The
on the
word on the street
street?
is he's coming back.
So what are we doing? Why is this line only 1.5? That's ridiculous to me. Unbelievable. I get that they got stomped by Texas State. Some of that had to do with quarterback play. Some of that had to do with GJ Kinney being in his absolute bag with Brad Jackson. Oh well. The South Alabama team has had some explosive plays against some not very good defenses. I think this Southern Miss team finds it because they need to. They look, need to. There's all of a sudden some urgency for them in the Sun Belt because sure they have the tiebreakers over, Arkansas State and Troy, but it's not necessarily. They play Troy next week, right? So if you want to leave, any doubt on the table, right? Win this week, win next week. Although I believe Troy has a pretty tough matchup this week. No, they got Georgia State. So yeah, actually, I mean, are we in a look ahead spot, CD? No, I'm just kidding.
I think we're
I think
fine.
they bounce back
I'm
here.
with you with Southern Miss for all the reasons you talked about.
Let's go.
I don't trust Major Applewhite right now and the Jags to get it done, even at home down there in Mobile. I'm going to move to the ACC here. I would have loved it to still be at 7 and it crossed 7, and I might kick myself for doing it. But you know what? We're going back to the Bill Belichick well. Didn't do us well last weekend.
No.
Duke at North Carolina. Give me UNC plus 6.5. Yep, UNC at home. I think they put themselves in a chance to get a win here against Duke, trying to go to bowl eligibility for Bill and the folks there. I know it's a gross game. I understand that Duke UNC in November. It's basketball season. No. It's football season for us here. Give me the Tar Heels.
That's crazy. Yeah, No, I'm not on that at all. I'll let you toil with that one. Uh, yeah, let me know how that one goes. I also got a number at +3 that crossed a 2.5. So UTSA plays this weekend. All right.
No,
They play a conference game this
at home,
weekend.
at home.
They play a conference game at home this weekend. And they are dogs?
Trap, 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 trap. For the other team, for the
Yeah,
favorites.
I mean, am I absolutely. Well, yeah. It's East Carolina coming off of a massive win against Memphis. You're telling me this is the biggest letdown spot, perhaps of all time, for East Carolina? Give me the freaking Roadrunners +2.5 at home right here. I got it at 3, but I'll put it in the best bets here at 2.5 for the lads, out of respect and honor and integrity, because that's what the show is about. We have integrity. So give me UTSA +2.5. Come on.
The Roadrunners in San Antonio are a dangerous football team. Some say the best football team in Texas. Some say.
Probably.
Some say. All right, I got my last two plays are actually in the same game. I'm gonna double dip in the USC and Oregon game here. I'm gonna be on the over, which I think is still at 59.5. I'm gonna double check that. While I'm double checking that, I'm also gonna be on Oregon -9.5. That line kind of fluctuated somewhere between 10.5, 10, 9.5, kind of throughout the weekend and into today, Tuesday, when we're recording. It's under 10 right now, and I love that. And so I'm going to be on USC or on Oregon, excuse me, -9.5, and the over is still at 59.5. So I will sit at that as well.
The old double dip. I would really like. I mean, the totals. I'm having a tough time getting a read on this game, so I see where you're going with that. The over 59.5. I do really like the Oregon -9.5 play. I couldn't get all the way there, but I actually do really like that play. So, and honestly, if Oregon covers that 9.5, I think that's a pretty decent positive correlation right there. USC maybe
Thank you.
throwing the ball in a negative game script.
Thank you.
I think that's, if you're gonna double dip, that's probably the way that you want to go. I'm gonna go. This is my gross bet of the day. We're gonna Wake Forest plays Delaware this week. All right, they're 17.5 point favorites. No, we're not betting the spread. All right, the over under in this game is pretty decently high. Let me see. It's 52.5. We're not betting the total in this game. We are going Wake Forest team total. And you're probably like scratching your head. What is that number at? Like 24, 25? Their offense stinks. 34.5. All
Fucking
right.
crazy. I mean,
All
just
right.
crazy.
The two quarterback system so far, CD, has kind of worked. All right.
To win
And they're going to run the
games. To win
football.
games.
They're going to, well, to win games, I think they're just going to run the football absolutely down Delaware's throat. They got a pretty dangerous quarterback over there in Delaware. Pretty solid at football. I'd say he's probably the second or third best quarterback over there in that conference. He's going to be chucking the ball. He might be. First of all, they're going to throw the ball a lot. Some turnovers. Did we get some turnover help over here? I just think Wake Forest is going to be putting up points. If you saw the list of teams that Delaware has played against that put up 35 plus points, I think you could see where I'm getting at here, where I think Wake Forest finds a way to put up 5 touchdowns in this one, which is wild. But boy, I think there's a chance. And then the last one for me, uh, look, Florida State is an interesting spot right now. An interesting spot that they're in right now is 5.5 point favorites is the best line I can get it at for NC State. +5.5 here in Carter Finley. I like me some Wolfpack in a bounce back game. CJ Bailey. Carter Finley is kind of different, right? Like, it is a really tough place to play. It is always packed out. It is a great environment. The crowd is loud. And CJ Bailey at home. And first of all, NC State at home. Uh, Going to just drop some scores just so I can, verify my thought. So you beat East Carolina at home, which turned out to be a pretty decent win. You beat Virginia at home, who, hello, knocking on the door of the college football playoffs. And you also beat Georgia Tech at home as well. You did have a stinker against Virginia Tech. All right. That was, I really don't know what actually happened in that game. They just lost. I don't know how that happened. I guess going 1 of 3 and fourth down will do that to you. Give me NC State plus 5.5 at home against Florida State.
I don't hate that at all, actually. I don't hate that. A couple of ACC plays there for you to finish this out here. I like where we're at here. I think we'll be fine this week.
I like it too. It wasn't like a monster slate for me. Last week I had 7 bets. Not like that this week. Couldn't find enough. I mean, I literally was scraping to find team totals. I mean, where
it was.
it was a tough week for me getting to 4. Getting to 4 was tough. Getting beyond that for me would have been nearly impossible. Let's head over to the Dirty Dogs. If you're here for the first time, the Dirty Dogs are simply this. CD and I, we draft each our own Dirty Dogs, 2 of them. 10-point underdogs. That is the threshold no matter what. Whenever we record this, we pick draft snake style, make it take it essentially on these Dirty Dogs. CD hit Wisconsin plus 360 2 weeks ago, so he still is on the clock. Last week, I had Northwestern and West Virginia. By the way, parlayed in a money line. Parlay, absolute disaster from both of them at the end there. Did Northwestern force 5 turnovers? Is that the right number there? And you still lost at Wrigley Field?
In a baseball
Ridiculous.
stadium. Come on now.
In a baseball stadium. You force 5 turnovers in a baseball stadium and lose. That's insane. And then West Virginia blowing that one in the last minute, which, by the way, what an insane last like 2-3 minutes of that football game. That was crazy. But found a way to lose that game. You were over there with Virginia Tech plus 475 and Troy plus 350. The Troy one, I wanted the Troy one. You took Troy before I could. Old Dominion took it to him, man.
Yeah. It was like your classic. Well, it was either going to be one of two ways. It's like it's either going to be a masterclass disaster class from Old Dominion, or they're going to run away with it, and they ran away with it. And hats off to them in the Sun Belt there.
Yeah, and then look, you took Virginia Tech against Florida State. I think you took Florida State 1 week too early. So, because NC State is about to get those boys. So this week, you're on the clock, CD. What are you rolling with first for your first Dirty Dog of the week?
Yeah, I'm heading to the Mountain West here, and I'm going up against my guys, our guys here, San Diego State. I hate to do it to them, but I think they're an upset alert here. Give me San Jose State Spartans to get it done. A bounce back spot here. Walker Eget. I mean, you cannot play as bad as they played last week against Nevada, right? You cannot replicate that again. I think the San Diego State team is vulnerable. We saw them get walloped by Hawaii. We saw them struggle with a bad Boise State team with all the injuries they're dealing with here. I think Coach Ken and San Jose State get it done and shake things up in the Mountain West. Give me San Jose State plus 400 money line. The spread is plus 11.5, but we're taking the money lines only here. Give me the Spartans.
Yeah, and like you look at the record and you're like, oh, what is Ken Niumatalolo doing over there? It has been one possession ball game after one possession ball game. You had a one possession ball game with Central Michigan that you lost in the first week of the season in heartbreaking fashion. You lost to Stanford by 1, early on in the season. You lost to Wyoming on the road by 1 score. Utah State on the road by 1 score. The Air Force game that had a rough second quarter there, but I don't mind this play. I don't know that I would be picking him to win. This wasn't on my radar, so I'll let you have it. But that I definitely see where you're going with. I like the thought process going through there. San Diego State is not immune to losing a game like this. I'm going to get a little bit stinkier than plus 400. Give me plus 460 Washington State. We talked about against James Madison. Ball games. Washington State has given ball games to teams on the road. Can they actually win a one-possession football game? I don't know that they can because they haven't done it at all this season. Except actually, I guess Idaho week 1, but Ole Miss, you gave a ball game to. Virginia, you gave a ball game to. Oregon State, you made look really rough on the offensive side of the ball, although Anthony Hankerson had like 130 yards in that game. I think that they can do it, man. They can do it. Just find a way to push through and spoil Bob Chesney's chance at a playoff spot.
Yeah, we talked about that game. That would be huge there for Jimmy Rogers and the Cougars. I'm going to the American here. I'm going to Tulsa. Tulsa is going to get their first win against Army. Listen here. I know it's on the road. I know Tulsa ain't very good, but they're going to run the football well in this game here. So will Army, but I think Tulsa gets it done here. They in a big spot here for Trey Lamb. A big spot for Trey Lamb. I like Tulsa. I think I'm at plus 310 is the best line I can get it at. Money line there for me. So give me Tulsa in the American, get their first American win.
Yeah, you don't know what Tulsa team you're going to get. That was on my radar. You took them before. Yeah, you took him. I was going to take him right there in that spot. Man. Yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a really good. Army's not good enough, and their play style is not conducive to, as we saw very early on in the season, losing to Tarleton State.
And I hit on Tulsa, too, against Oklahoma State, so they've done me well.
That is true. And that game was also on the road as well. I like that a lot. So I'm going to resort to my next option then. I'll take UCLA plus 330. I don't feel great about it, but Washington, how many games this year has Washington put together 4 quarters of really good football? And how many times have they done it on the road? I get it, you're still staying on the West Coast here, but I think UCLA could do it. I think they could absolutely do it. And Washington's a team that I've been very high on all year. I love Damon Williams. I've been on Washington several times. Sometimes with more distaste than others. I think UCLA at plus 330 could be a little bit sneaky here. So that'll be my second dirty dog of the week.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. It's weird because I bet against Washington a couple weekends ago. That was our last dirty dog we hit, right, with Wisconsin. This Washington team is so hit or miss, too. They are one of the best, I think, underrated 3-loss teams in the country. But with some of their tough stretches they've played, like it is hard to trust them to go on the road here and win a conference game for 4 quarters. That's what I saw a couple weekends ago. I don't hate that you're on this one either.
That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us in our Week 13 preview, our 8 games that we previewed, our best bets, and our dirty dogs. If you like the content you've made this far, you might as well like the video because we know you probably like the content. And then also, I would consider please giving us a subscription. That would mean a lot to us because we want you guys to stay with us, comment on our videos, just chat with us. I'm always responding to the comments, man. I love chatting up with you guys. You guys know a lot more ball than I would have ever imagined a comment section knowing. The people that watch these type of videos and click on them, we know you guys are ball knowers. So definitely be chatting it up with us. We love to hear from you guys. And thank you all so much for all the growth we've had this season. And we can't wait for these last couple weeks of college football. I am going to be dialed in on my couch this Saturday watching a lot of football. CD, anything for us on the way out?
Yeah, we love and appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all your support. Hope you guys are having as much fun as we are covering this for you guys and following along. What an awesome college football season it has been. Cherishing these final weekends while we can, because we know it'll be gone way too soon, but appreciate you guys for sticking around with us.
And we will see y'all in the next one.